Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome back to Battles of the American Civil War, Behind the Battles, with your host Bang and Dang. And we heard this guy a lot last week from Rosecrans' episode, so figured might as well do him today. He faced off against William Rosecrans, the majority of Rosecrans' time. So that was in the Army of the Mississippi, and which was later named the Army of the Tennessee in the Western Theater. He was also a Army officer in the Second Seminole War and the Mexican-American War. Yeah, we're talking about Braxton Bragg. Like I said, got a fort named after him for no reason. He got eventually removed from the Army and became a special advisor to Jefferson Davis because he was so terrible out in the field. Don't know how he became a special advisor. That tells you everything you need to know about the Confederates. But he was born in Warrenton, North Carolina, one of 6 sons of Thomas and Margaret Crosland Bragg. One of his older brothers, Thomas, he would later become the Confederate Attorney General.
okay.
And that's why. And interestingly enough, Braxton, he was also a cousin of Edward Bragg, who ended up fighting for the Union as a general during the Civil War as well.
What's that?
Braxton got a family, see, brothers versus brothers, so
Yep.
cousins and cousins this time. But
Same thing. Blood. Well, growing up, Braxton, he didn't have it easy, as not most people did back then. He was often the target of ridicule due to some pretty dark and unsubstantiated rumors. What was those rumors? Well, according to local gossip, his mother had been convicted in prison for murdering an African-American free man.
Oh.
And some even claim Braxton had been born in prison himself.
Oh.
He's a prison baby. What do they call those?
Crack baby.
Right. There's no solid evidence, though, to support any of that. Grady McWhiney, the main biographer of Bragg's early life, he emphasizes that Bragg, his family, was actually law-abiding despite the whispers that followed them. They were good people. They didn't command any of those acts. Even so, in the eyes of their neighbors, the Braggs were seen as lower-class murderers.
White trash. But old Thomas Bragg, his father, he was determined to rise above that label. He was a carpenter and a contractor by trade, and he managed to build enough wealth to send young Braxton to the Warrenton Male Academy. At the time, it was one of the top schools in the state. Look at you. There's also a deep historical lineage in the Bragg family.
Oh.
Braxton, he's a descendant of Captain Christopher Newport. He invented cigarettes. He was one of the early leaders of Jamestown colony in Virginia.
Look at that shit.
And he disappeared. He also descended from Newport's son-in-law, Thomas Bragg, who was born in England in 1579, who later settled in colonial Virginia.
All right. You don't hear too much about the Jamestown settlers.
There's nothing to hear.
All right.
Over the course of his life, Braxton, he would go on to write thousands of letters. All right. And while he often wrote fondly of his father, curiously, though, he never once mentioned his mama.
Oh.
Maybe he was born in prison, a little crack baby.
Wow. When old Braxton was just 10 years old, his daddy made a big decision. He wanted a military career for his son. So he got to work on making that happen. The goal, you ask? Well, it's easy. Get a nomination to the United States Military Academy at West Point. That's all you got to do.
Easy.
Well, now that the Bragg family had some political connections, they did. And this is where they came into play. We're going to use that to our advantage, son. Braxton's oldest brother, Johnny, he's just been elected to the state legislature. Well, that helps. With the new influence, John managed to gain the support of North Carolina's United States Senator at the time, which his name was Willie P. Magnum. Thanks to Magnum, Braxton was accepted into West Point at the young age of 16.
Once he got there, he was an impressive company. His classmates would go on to become major figures in the Civil War on both sides. Over for the Union ended up being Joseph Hooker and John Sedgwick.
Nice.
And on the other side, we got John C. Pemberton, Jubal Early, and William Walker.
No shit.
That class really packed a punch. Well, actually, yeah. He was everybody but Bragg.
Right.
Academically, Bragg held his own, but he wasn't exactly known for burning the midnight oil.
Oh.
But he had a sharp memory, and that helped him stand out.
Okay.
In fact, he racked up fewer disciplinary demerits than most of his classmates, which at West Point was no small feat.
Right.
When he graduated in 1837, he ranked 5th out of a class of 50.
Damn, that's the highest yet, isn't it?
No.
Who was the highest
There's several ones.
that we've done so far?
Yeah, I think McClellan was one. Even Rosecrans was like 4 or 5.
Fucking McClellan.
Stonewall, number 1? Or no, Stonewall. Somebody was really low. I forget who it was. It was like 40th or something.
Grant was like 33.
Yeah, he wasn't very good at all, yeah. Yeah, that same year he graduated, he was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the 3rd U.S. Artillery.
Oh, he's got to get into artillery, huh? Bragg's first real assignment came during the Second Seminole War down in Florida. He started off as assistant commissary officer and regimental adjutant. Sounds official, but he didn't actually see any combat. What did he see, you ask? Well, it was the inside of a sickbed. The tropical climate didn't agree with him very much, and he came down with a string of illnesses that he blamed squarely on the Florida heat and humidity.
He requested a medical transfer and was briefly reassigned to recruiting duty in Philly. But in October of 1840, the Army sent him right back to Florida. This time, he was made a company commander in the 3rd. Why would you do that when you can't even hack it?
Right.
He was 3rd U.S. Artillery and then given command of Fort Marion near St. Augustine.
No shit.
To his credit, Bragg did stay healthier in his new role. He's probably inside all the time. So.
Right.
But he also had a tendency to overwork himself, diving into administrative duties to improve living conditions for his men. He wasn't the kind of officer to just sit back and let things run themselves. And that obsessive work ethic, it led to, let's say, some tense communication with Army leadership.
Oh, you're working too hard. Wow. Bragg began firing off a series of argumentative letters to senior officials, including the adjutant general and the Army paymaster. This back and forth built his reputation as, quote, disputatious, a guy who could find something to argue about with just about anyone.
Hey, who's that sound like?
Wow. Now, if you've heard anything about Bragg before, it's probably this story here. It's one of those legendary, possibly made-up tales that still circulate today. Thanks in part to Ulysses S. Grant.
Well, here's how it goes. Bragg, he was serving as both company commander and quartermaster at a remote frontier post. In his role as commander, he submitted a requisition for supplies. But then, as quartermaster, he reviewed the request and denied it. Not one to give up, Commander Bragg resubmitted the requisition with extra justification. And Quartermaster Bragg, he denied it again. Eventually, Bragg referred the matter to the post commandant, who famously said, "My God, Mr. Bragg, you have quarreled with every officer in the Army, and now you're quarreling with yourself." Does he know? I don't understand. Is he doing this on purpose? That's hilarious.
What the fuck?
He's like, he was drunk when he wrote it, and then he's looking at it as the quartermaster. He's like, "That's fucking stupid."
Denied. Wow. Well, Grant, he includes this story in his memoirs, but even he admitted that he wasn't sure if it was true, and nobody else ever came forward to confirm it. Still, it's just too good not to tell, as we just did.
That's pretty good.
Goodness gracious. But not all of Bragg's issues were bureaucratic or self-imposed. 1847, 2 alleged assassination attempts on his life by his own troops.
Oh, mutiny.
And one of the incidents, definitely the more serious one, someone placed a 12-pound artillery shell under his cot and detonated it. Oh,
Jeez.
The cot was obliterated. But old Bragg, he came out completely unharmed. How?
What the hell? Well, he had his suspicions about who was behind it, but there wasn't enough evidence to press charges. Later on, a deserter named Samuel Church, he came forward and claimed responsibility for the attack.
Makes sense.
Right. In 1843, the 3rd Artillery, they moved to Fort Moultrie in Charleston, South Carolina. And while he was there, Bragg served alongside 3 officers who would later become prominent Union generals. Those were George Thomas, John Reynolds, and William T. Sherman.
Oh, shit.
Interestingly, Thomas and Reynolds were lieutenants under Bragg's command.
Oh, wow.
And all 3 would later play pivotal roles in the war on the opposite side of Bragg.
Yeah, they beat the shit out of him.
Well, I don't know about them, but...
Just because he wasn't writing angry letters anymore didn't mean he stayed quiet, though. Because between 1844 and 1845, Bragg, he anonymously published a series of 9 articles in the Southern Literary Messenger under the pen name A Subaltern. The series, titled Notes on Our Army, it pulled no punches. He went after Army policies and leaders, especially General Winfield Scott, whom he described as a vain, petty, conniving man. Not exactly subtle, I'd say, but it wasn't all personal attacks. Bragg also offered thoughtful ideas for restructuring the Army's general staff. Ideas at the time, they were ignored, but would eventually come to life in early 2000 century. But would eventually come to life in the early 20th century. So, even in his pre-war years, Braxton Bragg was already shaping military policy, dodging assassination attempts, managing to argue with pretty much everyone, including, apparently, himself.
Well, now remember those anonymous articles Bragg had published? Well, they didn't just make waves within military circles. They ended up grabbing the attention of someone pretty influential on Capitol Hill. And that's where James Clinton comes in, who was a New York Democrat, and as it happened, a political rival of Scott. So he's like, yeah, I can use this. Clinton saw Bragg's criticisms as useful ammunition. So in March of 1844, while Bragg was on leave in Washington, Clinton called him to testify before the House Committee on Public Expenditures. How did he know it was him? He read under a pen name.
Oh, wow. Here's where things get dicey. General Scott caught wind of the subpoena and flat out ordered Bragg not to testify, even though it was a direct summons from Congress. I mean, you don't have to.
What do? You got to listen to Congress, or do you listen to your commanding officer?
I'd rather listen to the commanding officer because Congress can't do anything, do you?
Right.
Bragg defied the order and showed up anyway. Oh shit. The result? He's arrested.
Yeah, we can't do that, bud.
Bragg was sent to Fort Monroe, Virginia, and put on trial in a court-martial. The charges, you ask? Well, it's easy. Disobeying orders, disrespecting his superior officers. Never one to back down from a fight, Bragg chose to represent himself. And rather than just defend his actions, he tried to flip the script, using the trial as a platform to go after Scott and his leadership.
Hey, why not?
Hey, man, it's there. Let's put it all out in the open, motherfucker.
In the end, it didn't even matter, in the words of Lincoln Park, because the court found him guilty. But the punishment was surprisingly light. He received an official reprimand from the Secretary of War and suspended from duty with half pay for just 2 months.
Oh, okay.
And if the Army thought that would shut him up, well, they clearly didn't know old Braxton Bragg.
Oh, wow.
The whole ordeal didn't deter him one bit from continuing to criticize his superiors in the years ahead.
Son of a bitch, you know this motherfucker's flipping to
You
himself.
gotta get rid of him, dude. Right.
In the summer of 1845,
As soon as we were hearing rumblings of secession, everybody was like, Bragg.
Right, we're still 16 years away. Son of a bitch. In the summer of 1845, Bragg and his artillery company were called up to join General Zachary Taylor down in Texas.
Called up to go down.
Ooh, the mission, you ask? Well, it's very simple. Defend the territory from a possible Mexican invasion.
Yep, pretty simple.
And this would turn out to be a defining moment in Bragg's military career. During the Mexican-American War, Bragg racked up promotions for bravery in what was officially called distinguished conduct.
Very distinguished gentleman.
He earned a brevet promotion to captain for his role in the Battle of Fort Brown in May of 1846, and then a promotion to major for his part in the Battle of Monterey that very September, and then to lieutenant colonel for his actions at the Battle of Buena Vista in February of 1847.
Moving on up, huh? Oh, those were brevet promotions, which are honorary advancements in rank. But Bragg also got promoted to captain in the regular army June of 1846.
Look at that shit.
What really made him stand out, though, wasn't just the titles. It was his reputation. He became widely admired in Taylor's army.
Fantastic.
Both for the discipline of his men and for the use of his new light artillery tactics.
Oh.
These weren't just flashy maneuvers either. They played a decisive role in the U.S. Army's success on the battlefield. What'd he do?
Well, it was in Buena Vista that made Braxton Bragg a household name. Critical moment. Bragg placed his artillery in a gap in the line, just in time to help repel a much larger Mexican force. He was fighting alongside Colonel Jefferson Davis and the Mississippi Rifles. You heard that right, old piece of shit Jefferson Davis. Davis came away seriously impressed. That admiration would resurface later on when Davis became Secretary of War and then President of the Confederacy.
Yeah, this explains why he let him advise him as well.
Right.
Well, here's where the legend kicks in. There's an old story, probably apocryphal, that during the heat of battle, General Taylor shouted, "A little more grape, Captain Bragg." The idea was that Taylor was calling for more grape shot to be fired, urging Bragg to double down. It's a dramatic line, and it's stuck around for generations.
Yeah.
People used to say that or something.
Yeah.
A little more grape, Captain Bragg.
Right.
Captain Bragg.
According to Major William Bliss, Taylor's chief of staff and his son-in-law, never happened.
Oh.
In
Well,
fact,
are they saying that now just because
his son-in-law didn't like him, right?
that, and he is this after the fact of the Civil
Right,
War?
Right. He was always jealous of Bragg.
Maybe.
William Bliss. It was supposed to be me.
Billy Bliss.
Right. In fact, according to the diary of Ethan Allen Hitchcock, Bliss flatly denied it, saying all the stories linking Taylor and Bragg's battlefield heroics were false. Taylor never said the grape line. He never said, "Major Bliss and I will support you." He never said that either. He's just pissed off because Taylor took his daughter and had dinner with Bragg.
Right. Like, why don't you meet somebody, darling?
He's a real,
Well, no, because
real soldier.
who married Taylor's daughter, dude? Every single general we've covered was served under Taylor.
Right.
One of them did.
Who
Who the fuck
did
was
marry? Clearly, this guy did.
it? No. Well, that is his son-in-law, but another one, somebody ordered.
Oh, it was
It was Jefferson Davis.
Jefferson Davis, that's right.
Duh. Right. That's crazy. Yeah. And then Bliss was the other one. Right. Jefferson Davis, yeah.
Right.
Jeez, yeah. But still, the myth had already taken hold. Bragg, he returned to the United States a celebrated war hero.
Oh, fuck yeah.
A military outpost in California, Fort Bragg, it was named in his honor.
Yeah.
Back in his hometown of Warrenton, citizens presented him with a ceremonial sword. And that's where things get a little ironic, don't you think?
I guess he does deserve that, Fort Bragg. Man.
Right. That was before.
Right.
Well, you see, the Bragg family had once been looked down on those towns' elite. But now that Braxton was famous, those same people were lining up to celebrate him.
Damn right they were.
Of course they were.
See, what have you done for me now?
Right.
Congressman David Outlaw noticed the shift, and he wrote, Colonel Bragg, having no thanks to them, won for himself a brilliant reputation, is now the object of the most fulsome adulation. He went on to say that those who once sneered at the Braggs were now desperate to honor them. It's like fucking Rudolph.
Right.
And then he wondered, with some satisfaction, how Bragg must secretly regard them. All right? He's like, these motherfuckers.
Fuck these guys.
Bragg took a bit of victory lap after the war, traveling to New York, Washington, Mobile, Alabama, and Nolens. Everywhere he went.
Mobile, blah, blah, blah.
Everywhere he went, he was honored.
Good for him.
But the glory didn't last forever.
Well, that's because December 31st, 1855, he submitted his resignation from the Army. It was officially accepted just a few days later, January 3rd of 1856.
Wow, that's weird. Usually they didn't accept it.
He served 10 years now. After years of military service, he and his wife, they bought a sugar plantation. 1,600 acres north of Thibodaux, Louisiana.
Okay.
Bragg had never opposed slavery, clearly. His father owned enslaved people, and so did his wife.
Okay.
So when they acquired the plantation, Bragg used the labor of 105 enslaved Afro-Americans to run the operation.
Cool.
He brought his strict, efficiency-obsessed mindset from the Army straight into the plantation management.
Hey, man, you got to have a well-oiled machine run this shit.
And it worked, financially at least. Despite taking on a large mortgage to buy the property, the plantation quickly became profitable.
Hey, man, that's all you got to do.
It's sugar.
All right. Bragg, he also involved in local politics. By the year of 1860, he'd been elected to the Louisiana Board of Public Works. But underneath all of this was a growing unease. All through the 1850s, Bragg was deeply troubled by the growing sectional crisis dividing the country that he loved. Interestingly enough, he opposed the idea of secession. He's like,
a lot of them did.
He believed that in a republic, no majority, even the South, had the right to ignore a written constitution. But that belief would soon be put to the ultimate
It's funny how they
test.
always say this before the war happened, and then as soon as the war happens, like, I'm joining the South.
Right. That's because of their states. People didn't have
He was in
loyalty
North Carolina.
He was in Louisiana.
He was in North Carolina where he was born.
Right. But where he lives now, that's his...
Bread and butter. That's about it. As the country inched closer to Civil War, old Bragg, he still technically retired from the U.S. Army, but he found himself back in uniform, this time on a very different side. Before the first shots were even fired, Bragg was serving as a colonel in the Louisiana militia. Then, December 12th, 1860, Governor Thomas More, he appointed him to the state's military board. What was their mission? Well, it was to build a 5,000-man army for Louisiana. Bragg, he took the job, even though, notably, he had opposed secession.
Right.
Despite his personal misgivings, he threw his lot in with the Confederacy.
I mean, like I
they
said-
weren't the Confederacy, yeah.
Right. But like I said, they're loyal to their states. If he lived in Ohio, he would have joined up in Ohio militia. But you can't have sugar farms with Afro-Americans in Ohio. Just weeks later, on the 11th of January, 1861, old Braxton, he led 500 volunteers to Baton Rouge, where they convinced the federal commander at the arsenal there to surrender peacefully. No shots were even fired. Just a strategic show of force. Soon thereafter, the Louisiana Secession Convention created a formal state army. And on the 20th of February, Governor Moore, he named Bragg its commander, promoting him to the rank of Major General. Bragg is now in charge of military operations all around New Orleans, which was a crucial Confederate port city for not
Not
that
for long.
Right. Didn't last very long.
But his role continued to evolve quickly. March 7th, 1861, his state commission was transferred over to the Confederate States Army, and he was given the rank of Brigadier General.
Oh.
That didn't last long either, because just 6 months later, September 12th, he was promoted yet again, this time to Major General.
Oh, okay.
So he was a Major General in the Louisiana military, then got demoted to Brigadier General, and then got promoted back to Major General.
I guess.
Well, from there, Bragg, he was sent to command Confederate forces in Pensacola, as well as parts of Alabama and the Department of West Florida. And this was a rare period where his leadership drew widespread praise. Rare, yeah. He brought order, discipline, and structure to the chaos of early Confederate mobilization. Under his command, regiments like the 5th Georgia and the 6th Florida, They earned reputations as some of the best drilled and most disciplined troops in the whole Confederate Army.
Oh, shit. Look at that. In December of that very year, President Jefferson Davis offered Bragg a bigger role. He said, I want you to command the entire Trans-Mississippi Department. But Bragg, he said, no. He wasn't optimistic about the situation west of the Mississippi River. Supplies were short, troops were poorly trained, and discipline wasn't even there, non-existent.
We'll go there and whip him in shape.
Top of that, Bragg's health was once again failing him. For years, he had struggled with a range of chronic conditions, rheumatism, dyspepsia, frayed nerves, and debilitating migraines. Ooh, these issues would come and go, but they always seemed to surface at the worst times, and they certainly didn't help his famously prickly personality. So the Trans-Mississippi Command went instead to Earl Van Dorn.
Old Van Dorn. But old Bragg, he didn't just say no and walk away. He made a strategic pitch to Davis. Instead of trying to defend every inch of Confederate territory, an approach that was spreading the army too thin, why not concentrate some forces where they could actually win?
Right.
Specifically, Bragg argued that his men were more valuable up north than sitting idle along the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Well, Davis agreed.
Yeah.
February of 1862, Bragg moved about 10,000 troops to Corinth, Mississippi. His new assignment was to shape up the Confederate forces already gathered under General Albert Sidney Johnston, and to bring his trademark discipline to a chaotic and poorly organized army. It was the beginning of a much larger campaign and a turning point in Bragg's wartime career, because then it goes...
Yeah. When the Battle of Shiloh erupted on the 6th of April, 1862, Bragg, he was right in the thick of it. He was serving under General Albert Sidney Johnston as both a corps commander and Johnston's chief of staff. The battle began with a surprise Confederate attack on Union forces camped near Pittsburgh Landing, which is in Tennessee. Bragg's corps ordered to advance in a line nearly 3 miles long. Damn. But as the fighting intensified, he ended up shifting his focus to the center of the battlefield, taking command of units that had gathered there in the chaos.
I guess it's still early in the war, but we've learned you don't attack the center, man.
Right, and this is where his men ran into serious trouble.
Well, they found themselves hammering away at a strong Union defensive position known as the Hornet's Nest. Bragg launched repeated frontal assaults, piecemeal and direct, but the Union line held firm for hours. The attacks became a costly grind with a little bit of payoff.
Nope.
Just a little. Then came a major shift in leadership. General Johnson, he was killed during the fighting, and then the command passed to PGT Beauregard, and then Beauregard, he named Bragg his second in command.
Okay.
Well, clearly he saw something in this guy.
Right, later on that afternoon, Confederate forces closed in on what many believed was a final chance to break the Union line. Beauregard made a controversial call. He halted the attack. Bragg was furious, pissed, throwing his hat down.
I threw my hat, thought you fool. We could have broke the line.
Oh, we could have won. Yeah. He believed this was their real shot at victory and was deeply dismayed to see the opportunity slip away. That very next day, Union forces launched a powerful counterattack. The old rebel line couldn't hold. The army forced to retreat back to Corinth, Mississippi.
Well, despite the retreat, Bragg came out of the battle with his reputation enhanced. He was publicly praised for his leadership. Just a few days later, April 12th, old Jefferson David, he promoted him to a full general. That made Bragg only the sixth man to reach that rank in the entire Confederacy, and one of just 7 in total over the course of the whole war.
Oh, sure.
His date of rank was set to April 6th, which was the first day of the Battle of Shiloh.
Okay.
After the grueling siege of Corinth, Beauregard took a leave of absence, citing illness, and he left Bragg temporarily in command of the army, which is now stationed in Tupelo, Mississippi.
Yeah, we all know that. Right. But here's where things get very messy. Beauregard failed to inform Jefferson Davis that he was stepping away. For 2 full weeks, he was effectively AWOL. Davis, already disappointed with Beauregard's performance during the siege, saw this as the last straw. With Beauregard out of the picture, Davis moved quickly, because on the 17th of June, 1862, officially appointed Bragg as commander of the Western Department, also known as the Department Number 2. That included command of the Army of the Mississippi,
where Bragg originally didn't want to go.
Bragg was now in charge of one of the most important theaters in the Confederate war effort. And with that promotion, his story was about to get a whole lot more complicated, and it starts to definitely go downhill.
By the summer of 1862, old Braxton had taken full command of the Confederate Western Department, and he was about to launch one of the most ambitious campaigns of his career. It all started in August when Confederate Major General Edmund Kirby Smith, he decided to take a bold move. Invade Kentucky from eastern Tennessee. His hope, stir up pro-Confederate sentiment in the border state and force Union General Don Carlos Buell to pull his army north of the Ohio River, which we've heard 1,000 times. This is what them and turned Kentucky into a Union state.
Yep. Bragg, he had a few options on the table himself. He considered trying to retake Corinth or marching through Middle Tennessee to strike Buell head on. But in the end, it didn't really matter, because he backed Kirby Smith's plan and agreed to reinforce the campaign. So Bragg began a massive relocation of his Army of Mississippi. We had about 30,000 men. He did that by rail. He moved them from Tupelo.
At least it's by rail.
Through Mobile, and then through Montgomery, and then finally up to Chattanooga. Meanwhile, his cavalry and artillery made the grueling trip overland.
Now, even though Bragg was the senior general in the region, there was a catch. Jefferson Davis had made Kirby Smith's Department of East Tennessee an independent command that reported directly to Richmond. And that setup, it was a bureaucratic headache that caused major problems for Bragg during the campaign.
It did.
The two generals met in Chattanooga July 31st, 1862, and came up with a joint strategy, though.
Ooh, fantastic. Smith's Army of Kentucky would march first, targeting Union defenders at Cumberland Gap. Bragg's forces, you ask? Well, they're exhausted from their long journey. They would rest and then follow. Once they linked up, Bragg would assume full command due to his seniority. Well, the plan was to get into Buell's rear, cut off his supply lines, force a major battle on favorable terms. After destroying Buell's army, they'd continue their march deeper into Kentucky, hoping to rally support and push the old rebel frontier all the way to the Ohio River. Well, that sounds great, doesn't it?
You hoped. Well, but then Smith, he went off script. August 9th, he informed Bragg he was ditching the plan.
Oh, no.
Instead, he'd bypass Cumberland Gap, leave a small force to hold it, and then head north immediately. Bragg, unable to override Smith's independent authority, he had to adapt on the fly. Instead of heading towards Nashville, he aimed his own army towards Lexington to link up with Smith instead. He warned Smith that Buell might catch and defeat him before they can combine forces, though.
Well, Bragg left Chattanooga on the 27th of August, just as Smith was arriving in Lexington. Along that very way, Bragg got sidetracked by the capture of a Union fort at Munfordville.
He's like, I couldn't help it.
Right. Then came a key decision. Should we keep pressing toward Louisville for a showdown with Buell, or should we rejoin Smith, who now controlled central Kentucky after capturing both Richmond and Lexington, and was even threatening Cincinnati? Oh, really?
Bragg, he chose to rejoin Smith, and he personally left his army and met up with him in Frankfort. While there, they attended the inauguration of Confederate Governor Richard Hall's October 4th. The ceremony was meant to be a triumph, but it was cut short by the distant rumble of a Union cannon fire. The inaugural ball that night, canceled.
I bet.
Then, October 8th, the two armies finally clashed unexpectedly at the Battle of Perryville.
Which we did.
Of course. The day before, both sides had skirmished while searching for scarce water sources.
Ooh.
Bragg believed he had a small, isolated portion of Buell's army in front of him, so he ordered General Leonidas Polk to attack. Polk, he was hesitant, dragging his feet until Bragg showed up in person to push him in the action and say, get your ass going.
What the hell you doing, motherfucker?
Oh, Leonidas.
Damn, when Polk finally moved, he struck Major General Alexander McCook's corps on the Union left flank and drove it back about a mile. But by day's end, Union reinforcements arrived to stabilize the line. And Bragg, he realized, which was too late that he realized, that he'd only been fighting a fraction of Buell's army. The rest was arriving quickly. Kirby Smith begged Bragg to press the attack. For God's sake, General, let us fight Buell here. But Bragg responded, I will do it, sir. But then he hesitated. Observers describe what came next as a perplexity and vacillation that left Smith, Hardee, and Polk stunned. Instead of renewing the attack, Bragg ordered a retreat, pulling his army back through the Cumberland Gap to Knoxville.
He said, I'll do it, sir. Retreat.
I'm gone.
Well, he tried to reframe the withdrawal as a victory, calling it the successful end to a massive raid. But the truth was more complicated. There were multiple reasons behind Bragg's decision. News had just come in from northern Mississippi that Confederate forces under Van Dorn and Price had been defeated at Corinth. And at the same time, old Robert E. Lee, he had failed in his Maryland campaign. Yeah, what are you guys going to do?
All right. Bragg, he calculated that pressing forward might win a minor victory, but at what cost? His army was far from home, exposed, low on supplies. Even if they were defeated, they'd lose not just men, but all the food, materials that they had collected in Kentucky. He wrote to his wife, with the whole Southwest thus in the enemy's possession, My crime would have been unpardonable had I kept my noble little army to be icebound in the northern clime, without tents or shoes, and obliged to forage daily for bread, etc.
I mean, he's right.
Right. He's like, that, we done that enough.
Right. Well, back in Richmond, the retreat didn't go over well, though. Bragg was summoned to explain himself to Jefferson Davis. His own officers were openly accusing him of mishandling the campaign and demanding he be replaced. Well, Davis, he heard him out, and somewhat surprisingly, he decided to keep Bragg in command. But the damage had been done. His relationship with his top generals, men like Polk, Hardee, and Kirby Smith, it was now deeply fractured.
Not broken, though.
Right. After the campaign, Bragg, he rejoined his army and ordered a movement back into Tennessee. He set up camp in Murfreesboro. But the cracks in his command structure, they were growing, and they were about to be tested yet again in battle.
I mean, who the hell has time to leave your post and go all the way to Richmond to have a conversation and then stop everything that you're doing and then go all the way back to Tennessee?
Him.
It's crazy.
Yeah, railroads.
I guess. It's like 2, 3, 4 days of wasting. By late 1862, Braxton Bragg, he was still at the helm of the Confederate Army in Tennessee, but he was about to give it a new identity.
Failures.
Because on the 20th of November, he officially renamed his force the Army of Tennessee, a title it would carry for the rest of the war. Meanwhile, things were changing on the Union side. Just a few weeks earlier, on the 24th of October, Union General Don Carlos Buell, he'd been removed from command. In his place, you guessed it, Major General William Rosecrans. And he didn't waste time putting his stamp on things when he got there. He immediately renamed Buell's force the Army of the Cumberland.
Okay. So now we have 2 new army names, and the stage was set for a major showdown.
Yes.
In late December, Rosecrans advanced out of Nashville, heading straight for Bragg's position near Murfreesboro.
He waste time, huh?
But before Rosecrans could strike Bragg, he decided to take the initiative.
No.
New Year's Eve, 1862, everybody's got their party hats. The Confederates, they launched a powerful surprise attack. They hit Rosecrans' right flank hard. The assault marked the opening of the Battle of Stones River.
Bragg's forces drove the Union troops back, compressing them into a tighter defensive pocket. It was a brutal day of fighting.
Brutal.
But Bragg, he believed he had scored a decisive blow.
I'm sure he did.
He assumed Rosecrans had no choice but to retreat. But guess what? As usual, he
Wrong.
was fucking wrong.
You'd be in jail.
Yeah. When January 2nd, 1863 arrived, Union forces were still holding strong, baby. Instead of retreating, Rosecrans, he dug in. Bragg, determined to finish the job, he ordered an assault on the Union left, this time using the division under Major General John C. Breckinridge. But that attack also failed. The Union line, just too strong, well positioned. And now they're even receiving steady reinforcements and supplies from Nashville itself.
Uh-oh. With no clear progress on the battlefield, worsening winter weather, and mounting pressure from his own senior officers, particularly Generals Hardee and Polk.
They don't like him anyhow.
Bragg, he made the difficult call to withdrawal. He pulled his army back to Tullahoma, Tennessee, ending the battle.
Damn it.
Stones River wasn't just a decisive Union victory by the numbers, but strategically as well. It was a major blow to Bragg. He had launched the offensive, expected a retreat, and ended up being the one to retreat instead. It further damaged morale within the Confederate command, and it deepened the already growing tension between Bragg and his subordinates.
All right.
You cannot have tension between you and your subordinates, guys.
No. After the grueling campaigns of Kentucky and the bloody battles of Stone River, Bragg's generals were anything but quiet about their dissatisfaction with their leadership. Rumors of criticism swirled throughout the army, and Bragg, never one to shy away from confrontation, decided to tackle the issue head on. He's like, all right, motherfuckers, what do y'all got to say? He drafted a letter and sent it out to his corps and division commanders. In that very letter,
do you hate me?
Right. Check yes or no. In it, he asked them to confirm in writing what they had in fact recommended the withdrawal after Stones River. Bragg was essentially saying, if I misunderstood you and pulled back by mistake, I'm ready to step down and let someone else take command. Oh.
Okay. But he sent this letter when some of his staunchest supporters were away, either recovering from wounds or on sick leave.
He did that on purpose.
Why, they're his supporters.
Right.
Bragg's critics, including the formidable William Hardee, he read between the lines. They saw the letter not just as a request for clarity, but as an unspoken question. Have I lost the confidence of my senior officers?
Just say it. Just say it.
Leonidas Polk, for one, he didn't bother to reply to that implied question.
Yeah.
Instead, he went straight to the top.
Oh.
Writing directly to old President Jefferson Davis himself and recommending that Bragg be replaced. He said, we've had enough of this fucking clown. What is he doing?
What the hell's going on? Well, Davis took the complaint seriously. To get to the bottom of things, he sent General Joseph Johnston to inspect the Army's condition. And he said, you report back to me, buddy. Well, now, Davis likely expected Johnston, who was technically Bragg's superior, to find the Army in disarray and step in to take command, effectively pushing Bragg aside. Well, things don't always go as it did for the old rebel commanders, but what happened next wasn't what anyone anticipated. When Johnston arrived, he was struck by what he saw. The Army of Tennessee was, by many measures, in good shape. He told Bragg bluntly, you have the best organized, armed, equipped, and disciplined army in all of the Confederacy, maybe the Union.
Jeez. Well, Johnson, he refused to take over command.
He's like, I can't do anything with that, son of a bitch.
He was concerned that assuming control under those circumstances might look like he was exploiting the situation for personal gain. It's a rare moment of principle in a war full of ambition. Yeah, there's so many people doing dirty shit.
Mm-hmm.
When old Jeff ordered Johnson to send Bragg back to Richmond, Johnson delayed, citing the illness of Bragg's wife, Elise. But then, even when she recovered, Johnson himself was held back by lingering medical issues from a wound he had suffered in the Battle of Seven Pines.
Oh, shit.
Okay.
All right. So Bragg stayed in command for the time being, but these internal fractures and doubts about his leadership would continue to shape the Army of Tennessee's fate, and now his own legacy. As Bragg's Army of Tennessee dug in, fortified the position around Tullahoma, Union General William Rosecrans was busy at work just down the road in Murfreesboro. For the next 6 months, Rosecrans focused on resupplying, retraining, reorganizing his forces, preparing for the next big push. Then on the 23rd of June, 1863, Rosecrans made his move, caught Bragg by surprise.
Hey, while keeping Confederate General Leonidas Polk's corps busy with small-scale skirmishes in the center of Bragg's line, old Rosecrans, he sent the majority of his army on a wide maneuver around Bragg's right flank.
Uh-oh.
His plan, it was to outflank the Confederates and force them off their ground.
Damn right it was.
But Bragg, he was slow to respond, and things were complicated by the usual infighting and mistrust among his own generals.
I mean, that's what happens. You can't do that shit.
Nope. For months, communication between Bragg and his senior officers had been poor, and neither Polk nor William Hardee had solid grasp of Bragg's overall strategy. Right. Like, we don't even know what this guy wants to do.
This is, wow. As Rosecrans' forces outmaneuvered him, Bragg was forced to make a tough call. He abandoned Tullahoma, and by the 4th of July, his army retreated across the Tennessee River. Rosecrans' Tullahoma campaign is often called brilliant by historians. He achieved his goal, which was to drive Bragg out of Middle Tennessee, while suffering minimal casualties. Historian Judith Halleck noted that Bragg was outfoxed during the campaign, and that his ongoing ill health may have affected his decision-making.
Oh, don't make excuses.
Right, but she also gave credit where it was due. She said Bragg handled the retreat reasonably well under difficult conditions, managing to keep his army intact.
Well, that he did, but at the end of July, the Army of Tennessee outnumbered about 52,000 men, but Bragg's responsibilities suddenly expanded.
Uh-oh.
The Confederate governor merged the Department of East Tennessee, led by Major General Simon Buckner. They merged him into Bragg's command, which added roughly 17,800 men.
I mean, this dude had a hell of an army.
And it stretched Bragg's authority northward all the way to Knoxville.
Oh, wow.
Uh-oh. Sure, old Polk and the other guy wasn't happy about this.
Well, either was Buckner, because he wasn't thrilled at all. He had little respect for Bragg, probably a holdover from Bragg's failed invasion of Buckner's home state of Kentucky in 1862. He resented losing his independent command. Oh, wow. On the bright side, for Bragg, William Hardee requested a transfer to Mississippi in July, removing a difficult subordinate. He's like, get the fuck out of here. Hardee's replacement, you asked? Well, it's none other than Lieutenant General Daniel Harvey Hill.
Oh, D.H.
A man who famously clashed with Robert E. Lee back in Virginia. And D.H. Hill, but they still loved each other.
That was A.P. Hill. D.H. Hill hated Lee.
Right, that's true.
Fast forward to early August, the Confederate War Department asked Bragg a critical question. If given reinforcements from Mississippi, could he go on the offensive against Rosecrans? Bragg, he demurred. He was concerned about the tough geography and logistical nightmares in the region and preferred to let Rosecrans make the first move.
Ooh.
An opposed crossing of the Tennessee River looked impossible. Rosecrans knew this, and he came up with a clever deception.
Uh-oh, what did he do? Well, he kept Bragg's attention fixed above Chattanooga with small feints and even shelled the city from the heights of north of the river, while secretly moving the bulk of his army downstream to cross out of sight. Bragg also had to worry about a sizable Union force under Major General Ambrose Burnside, threatening Knoxville to the northeast. Yeah, Burnside wasn't no, just flick him off on the way.
He was no slouch.
Right, he was a force himself. So Rosecrans' feints amplified those fears perfectly, because by September 4th, the majority of the Union Army had crossed the Tennessee River, southeast of Chattanooga, and old Braxton Bragg realized his position was no longer defensible, and he evacuated the city just a few days later on the 8th of September. Just a shit show was going on here. And then these guys really don't have to do anything. There's like, Rosecrans is like, geez, make it hard on us, bud.
This is it?
Really?
Well, after Rosecrans had solidified his grip on Chattanooga, he pushed his army further north into Georgia, hot on the trail of Bragg's retreating forces. But Bragg was facing more than just the Union Army.
As always.
His own subordinates were proven to be a constant headache, often ignoring his orders and acting on their own agendas.
I mean, there's no respect there, so they're not going to listen to anybody.
For example, September 10th, Major Generals Thomas Hinman and D.H. Hill, they outright refused to attack a smaller federal force at McLemore's Cove, which was an engagement known as the Battle of Davis's Crossroads. We did that.
Wow. Then just a few days later, on the 13th of September, Bragg, he ordered Polk to strike Major General Thomas Crittenden's corps. Polk, however, ignored those orders and instead demanded reinforcements, claiming that he was the one about to be attacked. These delays gave Rosecrans precious time to concentrate his scattered troops, but Bragg, he wasn't finished. He said, come on, man. Come on, man. September 19th and the 20th, 1863, reinforced by 2 divisions from Mississippi, a division and several brigades from East Tennessee, 2 divisions under Lieutenant General James Longstreet, fresh from Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia. Bragg, he launched a counterattack. He's, all right, I got somebody on here.
And this is where it goes.
Yeah, Longstreet wasn't very well here. I don't know what happened.
Well, this is where it goes wrong for William Rosecrans, but that resulted in the Battle of Chickamauga, which is the Confederacy's greatest victory in the Western Theater during the war. It was a hard-fought, bloody win, one that came at a staggering price. Bragg's army suffered nearly 18,450 casualties, making it the costliest Confederate victory of the entire war.
Damn.
Still, it wasn't quite the complete victory Bragg had hoped for. His goal had been to cut off Rosecrans' army at Chattanooga and destroy it completely. Instead, after Longstreet's wing partially routed the Union forces, Major General George Thomas held firm, earning the nickname the Rock of Chickamauga.
Damn right it did.
Or Rockamaga. And it allowed Rosecrans and almost his entire army to escape.
Sure did. We went over that like 3 or 4 times.
Yes. After the battle, Rosecrans' battered army of the Cumberland, they retreated back to Chattanooga, where Bragg, he moved to lay siege.
I mean, just little shit like this are turning points of what could have been
different.
Right. What could have been different. Just, I mean, I guess that happens. Guess it happened. But now Bragg's fight, it wasn't just against the Union, as always before.
Well,
He's still battling his own officers. Frustrated by what he saw as their failures during the campaign, Bragg punished Hinman for his inaction at McLemore's Cove, and Polk for delaying the attack on the morning of the 20th of September. So on 29th of September, both were suspended from their commands.
Uh-oh.
But guess what? You think everything was quiet down there and things can go back to normal? Nope. Did not happen.
Oh, it was in early October. A mutiny was a-brewing. As a result, D.H. Hill, he was relieved of command as well. To make matters worse for Bragg, Longstreet and his corps, they were sent away to fight in the Knoxville campaign. And that was against Ambrose Burnside, which seriously weakened Bragg's forces outside of Chattanooga. The disgruntled generals, including many division and corps commanders, they weren't quiet about their frustrations either.
No, they met secretly and drafted a petition to President Davis, calling for Bragg's removal
Only
again.
The 4th time.
While the author of the petition remains a mystery, historians suspect that Simon Buckner himself did it.
Still pissed off. He got his shit taken away.
Right. Lieutenant General James Longstreet even wrote to the Secretary of War with a stark warning. Nothing but the hand of God can save us or help us as long as we have our present commander.
Oh, wow.
Is he talking about Lee?
Right. Jefferson Davis.
Right.
With the Army of Tennessee on the brink of mutiny, Jefferson Davis himself traveled to Chattanooga to take stock of the situation and try to calm the unrest. Bragg, for his part, he offered to resign to settle the crisis.
Just let him go.
But old Davis, he ultimately decided to keep Bragg in command, denouncing the complaining generals and calling their grievances shafts of malice.
Which they kind of were, but...
Probably, man. You do whatever guy tells you to do.
Right, as Bragg struggled with dissent among his subordinates and saw his forces weakening.
He didn't have anybody that was on his side in this whole thing, or what?
Especially after dispatching Longstreet to Knoxville campaign, the Union Army under siege at Chattanooga got a game changer. Old drunken Grant coming in and taking command. Grant, he arrived with a significant amount of alcohol. He arrived with a significant amount of reinforcements from Mississippi and Virginia, ready to break the old rebel hold on that city of Chattanooga.
Yeah, well, what followed, you guessed it, the battles for Chattanooga, which was a turning point and ultimately Bragg's final days as an Army commander.
Yeah.
On November 24th, Bragg's already weakened left flank, the very section that had been manned by Longstreet's troops. It collapsed during the Battle of Lookout Mountain.
Damn it. Then the very next day, during the Battle of Missionary Ridge,
Missionary Ridge might be, actually.
Right, Bragg's main defensive line managed to hold firm on the right flank against the old Union assault, but the center of his line didn't hold the most important part. Union forces under George Thomas launched a relentless frontal assault that overwhelmed the old rebel center. The Army of Tennessee was routed, forced into a chaotic retreat all the way back to Dalton, Georgia. Mr. Dalton, the blow was devastating. Yep, Bragg, you gotta go.
Well, so devastating that just 5 days later, November 29th, Bragg, he tendered his resignation and was stunned when Jefferson Davis accepted it immediately.
He didn't want to get rid of him, but he was waiting for him to... Well,
yeah. He said Davis was like,
thank you.
I gave you so many passes, dude.
Right.
Well, then he handed temporary command over to William J. Hardee on December 2nd before being officially replaced by Joseph Johnston. That very army would be routed just not too long later.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Johnson even go on to lead the Army of Tennessee in the grueling Atlanta campaign of 1864, facing off against General William T. Sherman.
Sherman had a mission, and he was getting it.
And he was committing war crimes.
Yeah.
And with that, old Braxton Bragg's tumultuous tenure as a Confederate Army commander came to a close.
Yep, lasted longer than it should have. February of 1864, Braxton Bragg summoned to Richmond for an important consultation with Jefferson Davis. His new orders, dated February 24th, officially tasked him with overseeing the conduct of military operations of the Confederate States. All right. But in reality, Bragg was stepping into a role more like a military advisor or a chief of staff, kind of like Robert E. Lee once held, without a direct battlefield command. Maybe that's where he needs to be. Bragg threw himself into...
Right, we don't want you on the field making decisions, but we'll consult you about what to do, I guess.
And do the opposite.
Right. Well, he was good tactically. But
Bragg threw himself into the organizational side of things very fast and quickly. He worked to reduce corruption within the old rebel military and improve the notoriously troubled supply system.
They were notarized.
Notarized.
He also took over responsibility for administering the military prison system and its hospitals, which was a tough job, especially during wartime.
It was.
One of his big achievements during this time was reshaping the Confederacy's conscription process.
There it is.
He streamlined the chain of command, cutting down on the number of ways conscripts could appeal their service, making the system more efficient. But it wasn't all smooth sailing, because why would it ever be?
No, never is. During his time in Richmond, Bragg, he found himself clashing with a lot of important figures.
Oh, no, you don't say.
Well, the Secretary of War, the Commissary General, members of Congress, the press, and even of his fellow generals, many of them. The one exception, he ain't fucking Robert E. Lee. Lee treated Bragg with politeness and respect, and Bragg knew that Lee shared a very close relationship with President Davis himself.
He was a big guy. Well, that's because, he knew he shared a relationship with Davis, so Lee could just be like, get this motherfucker out of here. Well, meanwhile, in May, while Lee was locked in brutal combat defending Virginia against old U.S. Grant's overland campaign, Bragg, he turned his attention to defending the areas south and west of Richmond.
Yeah.
He successfully convinced Davis to appoint P.G.T. Beauregard to a key role in defending Richmond and Petersburg.
Okay. Didn't work out. But Davis, he was worried about the situation in Georgia. Georgia?
Yeah, you should be.
Joseph Johnston, who had replaced Bragg as commander of the Army of Tennessee, was perceived as being too cautious against Sherman's aggressive Atlanta campaign.
I don't think anybody was going to match Sherman's aggressiveness.
No. So on the 9th of July, Davis, he said, Bragg, take your ass to Georgia. I want you to assess the tactical situation there and then evaluate whether Johnston should be replaced or not. He's like, you want me to tell you if somebody should be replaced?
You want me to to evaluate whether the guy that replaced me should be replaced?
Right.
Okay. Well, Bragg himself hoped he might get the nod to return to command of the Army of Tennessee, but he was ready to support whatever decision Davis made. Davis, he had hinted that William J. Hardee might be a suitable replacement, but Bragg was reluctant to promote Hardee, an old rival, of course, and reported that Hardee's leadership wouldn't bring any real change in strategy from Johnson's.
Probably wouldn't.
Instead, Bragg had extensive talks with younger Corps commander named Lieutenant O. John Bell Hood. Hood impressed Bragg with his aggressive plans for taking the offensive, plans that Hood had even been quietly communicating to Richmond for weeks behind Johnston's back.
Oh, son of a bitch.
In the end, Davis did indeed choose Hood to replace Johnston.
Yeah, that's all right, because in October 1864, Davis sent Braxton Bragg to take temporary command of the defenses at Wilmington, North Carolina. His responsibilities, you ask? Well, it quickly expanded, and we don't know what those responsibilities were.
We do.
His responsibilities quickly expanded thanks to recommendation from Robert E. Lee. His responsibilities were to cover the entire Department of North Carolina and Southern Virginia. But the war was closing in fast.
Mm-hmm.
By November, Sherman's devastating march to the sea was well underway. Davis ordered Bragg to move from Wilmington to defend key southern cities, starting with Augusta, Georgia, then Savannah, then Charleston, South Carolina, and back again to Wilmington by January of 1865. And nobody knew just a few months later.
Well, the Confederates managed to hold strong in one crucial early fight, successfully repelling the first Union attempt to capture Fort Fisher. It was a fort that was vital because it controlled the seaborne supply line to Wilmington, which was the Confederacy's last major Atlantic port. But things changed dramatically with the old second battle, Fort Fisher, in January.
Did Bragg, he assumed that because the first siege had failed, the fort was essentially invincible. What he didn't fully realize was that poor communication and planning by the old Bluecoats had played a big role in the initial failure. So when the Union launched their second attack, Bragg didn't send reinforcements or come to the fort's aid at all. The result, you ask? Well, the old rebels lost Fort Fisher.
See, Bragg?
And by February, they were forced to evacuate Wilmington altogether, losing their last Atlantic seaport. From here on out, Bragg's already fragile military career began to crumble.
And add insult to injury, Joseph Johnson, he returned to service to command what was left of the Army of Tennessee and other forces opposing Sherman's advance into North Carolina. At around the same time, Bragg, he lost his position as Jefferson Davis's military advisor.
Damn, this dude is losing it all.
Well, that role it went to Robert E. Lee because he was promoted to general-in-chief of all the armies in February of 1865. He's a big guy.
Should have done that years ago.
Right.
Make matters worse, old Breckinridge, who had harbored a deep grudge against Bragg since the disaster at Perryville, he was named Secretary of War.
Uh-oh.
He's like, Bragg will never, ever fight for the Confederate again.
Did we do Breckinridge? We did not do Breckinridge.
Davis, he sympathized with Bragg's discomfort and even discussed transferring him to command the Trans-Mississippi Department, replacing Edmund
That was the
Kirby
one he
Smith.
didn't originally want to go to.
Right. But politicians from that region were fiercely opposed to the idea. He's like, don't bring that motherfucker over here. Instead, Bragg effectively became a corps commander, though his command was actually smaller than a full division, serving under Johnston for the remainder of the Carolinas campaign. Man, how far had the mighty fallen?
Right. His men managed a minor victory at the Second Battle of Kinston, early March from 7th to the 10th. Then they fought again at the Battle of Bentonville later that month from the 19th to the 21st,
Good.
though this time unsuccessfully.
Uh-oh.
Then with the fall of Richmond, April 2nd, Jefferson Davis and the remnants of the Confederate government, they fled.
They're gone.
Bragg, who had been headquartered in Raleigh, North Carolina, he caught up with Davis near Abbeville, South Carolina, May 1st. And Davis is like, you think we could do something, put something back together? The band's back together. No.
Maybe. He attended the final cabinet meeting and convinced Davis that the old Confederate cause was lost. Shortly thereafter, Bragg and a small group of his staff headed west, but they were captured and paroled in Monticello, Georgia on the 9th of May. And with that, Braxton Bragg's long, tumultuous military career finally came to an end.
Yeah. After the war, Bragg and his wife Eliza, they faced tough times. Back in late 1862, they lost their plantation home in Thibodaux when the United States Army confiscated it.
Shit happens, bud.
The plantation briefly became a shelter called the Bragg Home Colony, which was run by the Freedmen's Bureau for Freed African Americans. Oh, insult to injury there, huh?
Right, they kept his name.
Yeah. With their home gone, Bragg and Eliza, they moved in with his brother, who owned a plantation in Lowndes-boro, Alabama. But life there, secluded and quiet, was something they found hard to endure.
All right, they like that nightlife. Fast forward to 1867. 2 years, the war's been gone. Reconstruction, not quite done.
Not even quite started.
Bragg took a job as a superintendent of the New Orleans Waterworks. However, as the Reconstruction era unfolded and power shifted, a formerly enslaved African-American man replaced him.
Damn.
By late 1869, Jefferson Davis himself, the former Confederate president, offered Bragg...
Davison?
Yeah. Jefferson Davis offered Bragg a position as an agent for the Carolina Life Insurance Company. Secret agent, man. Bragg was like, all right, I'll work there for you. And I'll do it for 4 months. Then he was unhappy with low pay and the nature of the work.
Oh, make some money and shut up.
Right.
At one point, Bragg even considered joining the Egyptian army. Oh, geez, but ultimately decided against it.
Right. You have to sail across the sea.
And ride camels and shit.
Right.
Yeah. In August 1871, Bragg, he found employment with the city of Mobile, Alabama.
Look at that.
He worked on improving the river, harbor, and bay.
Wow.
But in true Bragg style, conflict soon arose because he clashed with what he called a combination of capitalists and left the job.
What do you think you're living, buddy?
He then moved to Texas. In July of 1874, he was appointed chief engineer of the Gulf, Colorado, and Santa Fe Railway. But once again, disagreements, this time with the board of directors over his compensation, it led to him to resign within a year.
Holy shit. This dude just can't can't get along with anybody. Well, he decided to stay in Texas. He took a job as inspector of railroads. And then on 27th September 1876, age 59, Bragg, he was walking down a street in Galveston with a friend. And then he suddenly collapsed. And he was unconscious. He was dragged into a nearby drugstore. Despite efforts, he died within 10 to 15 minutes.
Hey.
A physician familiar with Bragg's medical history believed he died by the brain, likely from degeneration of cerebral blood vessels. A condition that is sometimes described as paralysis of the brain. Official inquest ruled the cause of death fatal syncope. Don't know what that is. Possibly triggered by an underlying heart condition. Most likely couldn't get enough blood or oxygen into the brain. Right? Braxton Bragg laid to rest Magnolia Cemetery in Mobile, Alabama.
Weird. He's from North Carolina, lived in Louisiana, settled in Texas after the war, and then he just gets buried in Mobile.
Right, with Trudy and whoever.
Well, when it comes to old Braxton, many modern historians, they're pretty blunt. James Blunt, you're beautiful.
Right.
Well, James McPherson, a respected Civil War historian, he famously grouped Bragg alongside other Confederate generals like Pemberton and Hood as the bumblers who lost the West.
Son of a bitch.
That pretty much sums up a common judgment.
You ain't kidding.
So, what were Bragg's shortcomings as a commander, you say? Well, he was known for unimaginative tactics, most notably his heavy reliance on frontal assaults.
I mean, you can't do rear assaults.
Well, at least try to attack the flanks or something.
Think about battles like Hornets Nest or Shiloh. Breckinridge's charge at Stones River, and the repeated head-on attacks at Chickamauga. Even when he achieved tactical victories, or at least draws, he often failed to follow up effectively after the battle, turning those moments into strategic disappointments, just like Perryville and also Chickamauga. Bragg's personality didn't help his cause because he was a bastard. He had a sour disposition. He was quick to blame others when things went wrong. This made him a lightning rod for criticism. Probably more than many of his less successful peers.
Right. They just shut up and failed. This dude failed and ran his mouth.
Peter Cousins, huh? First time I heard that guy's name.
Well, that's like, because said it about a million times in Rosecrans episode.
Today.
Historian Peter Cousins, he described Bragg's relationship with his subordinates as strained, to say the least.
Right.
Even Bragg's most loyal supporters warned about his quick temper and general irritability. He was known for firing barbs during fits of anger, often wounding innocent men.
Damn it.
And if Bragg formed a bad opinion of a subordinate, he held on tight. For many officers in the Army of Mississippi, the only relief was either Bragg's removal or their own transfer.
You ain't getting.
Because staying under his command was almost unbearable.
shitty workplace. There was one private. His name was Sam Watkins. He later became a professional writer. And he said, which was famously noted, none of Bragg's men ever loved him. They had no faith in his ability as a general. He was looked upon as a merciless tyrant. He loved to crush the spirit of all the men. Damn. That's pretty harsh words there, bud. Historian Ty Sudol, he sums it up by pointing out that Bragg's battles often ended in defeat, largely because his stubborn insistence on direct frontal assaults and his uncanny ability to turn minor wins or losses into strategic defeats.
But it's not all one-sided. I mean, there's somebody out there that likes this guy.
Got to be, right? His wife, maybe?
Maybe. In recent years, some historians have pushed back against the purely negative view, what Judith Lee Halleck called the Bragg syndrome. Oh, Bragg derangement syndrome, BDS. Well, yep, Bragg, he was a great Army commander, but historians like Halleck and Stephen... Right. That's what I said.
No.
But historians like Halleck and Stephen Woodworth, they argued he was at least a skilled organizer.
I mean, yeah, you got to have some kind of skill.
They also say some of his defeats were due to bad luck and the incompetence or insubordination of troublesome subordinates, especially Leonidas Polk.
Ooh.
Now, Hardy, another subordinate, was actually considered solid even by Bragg himself. Polk, while personally brave and charismatic, he was an average tactician at best.
Okay.
Known for launching piecemeal attacks and outright disobedience.
All right.
He was also a close friend of Jefferson Davis, which made the president reluctant to remove him.
Yep.
Same thing that happened to Bragg, though.
Tis. Woodworth also notes that Bragg never even got the kind of strong support from Davis that generals like Lee and Sidney Johnston enjoyed. Interestingly enough,
I would say getting asked to get removed from his command 7 times before it was finally done is pretty strong support to me. But
yeah, interestingly enough, historians Grady McWhiney and Woodworth, they say that contrary to popular belief, Bragg and Davis, they weren't even exactly close friends at all. They had bitter arguments even before the war. Early on, Davis admired Bragg's qualifications for command, but by 1863, he was willing to relieve him.
Well, that's what war does. Well, that said, Judith Halleck, she points out that there was some mutual admiration between Bragg and Davis during Bragg's time in Richmond, perhaps because Bragg genuinely respected the president.
Okay.
But after the war, Bragg and Davis's relationship actually grew closer.
Oh, that's nice. Bragg
regularly addressed his letters to Davis as your friend.
Oh,
and they even worked together at the Carolina Insurance Company, which we said. Good for him.
All right, Bragg. Well, you did good in the Mexican-American War, and
for a minute there in the beginning of the Civil War, but then when you keep trying the same things and it doesn't work, and you keep trying it, and you keep trying it, and you keep trying it, and then you don't shut up.
He was right about one thing, though, because the Western theater wasn't a main goal, and that's what the Confederates wanted to do. And you should have stuck to the East Coast, boys.
Well, they tried. Just couldn't do anything on the East Coast beyond Lee.
Oh, that's true.
Nobody else can do anything.
Well, Stonewall Jackson ruined everything.
Well, that was Lee's command. So.
Right. He died.
Yes, he did. That's all for Braxton Bragg.
That is all.
Fun thing is, he had a fort named after him, but then they renamed it like Fort Victory or some shit, and now it's renamed Fort Bragg again, but it's not after Braxton Bragg. It's after some World War II private something Bragg, but they renamed it Bragg.
Just to shut people up.
All right. So yeah, there's that. Braxton Bragg. We'll be back next week for another Union general. Maybe we'll finally do. We've been holding off on Sherman and Sheridan because those two are probably going to be 2-parters, and this is going to be like 2.5 hours worth.
Maybe we'll do like Pickett. He was a Confederate.
Yes, he was.
Maybe we'll do. I don't know.
We'll do somebody. Well, yeah. Until then, subscribe, share with friends, give us a review.
Chamberlain?
Joshua. Yeah, maybe. I think he
had a good little run in the Gettysburg. That'd be good.
I think he also had a pretty decent after war life. But yeah, we'll be back anyway. So we'll do something. So yeah, subscribe, share with your friends, give us a review, like, share, all that good stuff, and we'll be back next week for more Civil War Behind the Battles. We'll see you then. We're the Mother Music Industry.
Bang dang.